Hey everybody! Welcome to another episode of Timeout with Tackle What's Next, where we chat with athletes and executives about how sport has made a difference and changed their lives and the lessons they've learned in life outside of the game. I am your host, Danielle Berman. I am the founder and CEO of Tackle What's Next, where we help athletes create impact outside of sports and find their purpose in life after the game. Thanks for taking a time out with us tonight. We have a great guest, Kristoffer Doura. Chris is a former NFL player, and he's now a financial planner. His areas of expertise include charitable planning, legacy planning, and business exit and succession planning. And he's also a passionate philanthropist in the South Florida area where he lives. He's an active member of Big Brothers Big Sisters. He is involved with the Boys and Girls Club of Broward County down in South Florida as well. And he's also involved with Families First of Palm Beach County. And I know Chris because he spoke at our Tackle What's Next Summit last year, just about a year ago in Miami. We talked a lot about some great topics for athletes thinking about transition, and it's hard to believe it's already been a year. So I'm excited to catch up with Chris and see what he's been up to since then. So I see he's here. We're going to get this started. I'm going to bring him on screen and we'll get going. Hello. How are you?
Hey, Danielle, I'm so blessed by the grace of God. Things are, going amazing. I'm so happy to see you. It's been like a
Yes,
year,
I can't
right?
believe it. It's hard to believe it's already been like I was just thinking before this. I was thinking, what was I doing this time last year? And I was like, it was Super Bowl week this time last year. I was in
Right.
Miami, and it's crazy to think we're already back to another Super Bowl week. So thank you for being here.
Warm climate, and we were thinking about, the after party and hanging out in so many great locations here in Miami. And come to find out, a year later, look where we're at. We're all virtual.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's unbelievable. And that's actually a good segue to my first question is how has this year and change been for you? Obviously, a lot of your work is planning for the future, financial planning. So like what's 2020 COVID times? What has that been like for you? What's changed?
Well, it's either been a blessing or a lesson. I think I've learned so much, not only about myself and also with the type of stuff that I do in the community. Things have changed for me in the sense of, getting out there. I had a pre-existing condition when I, had a second chance at life. And it really allowed me to kind of, really focus on health and really
Yeah.
focus on kind of my mind and energy of where I put it. Things that changed for me is I guess I'm not in the public driving to, meetings and like having to face traffic anymore. So everything's really online, everything is virtual. But for the most part, I learned, humility. I've learned a lot more patience. And I think that's really kind of the essence of, how I do, work philanthropically and in
Hmm.
business. And, those are some of the things that I've learned about, how to adapt to a COVID-19 situation. It's an unprecedented time. Nobody expected it. And I think
Right.
obviously we've done such a great job, maneuvering, adjusting, and just, being, more together as a whole.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And you mentioned just that like personal situation of like I have to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. And I think that's a big thing we're all starting to, if you weren't thinking about it before, you're thinking about it now because no one's going to look out for your health except for yourself. So you need to make sure that that's something that's in your routine. So it's good to hear that, things are virtual, but there's some challenges with that side of things too, right? That Zoom fatigue or whatever it is, right? That there's a lot of FaceTime, Zoom, everything staring at screens. So
The
um,
globe adjusted to the virtual setting, and I think we're having
it's
parties on Zoom. We're going to happy
exactly,
hour on Zoom. We're just enjoying, I guess, that connection, and
yeah.
thankfully technology and how we're all adapting, even our grandparents. So
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's you got to show them where the mute button is, but now they got the hang of it, right? That's now they're getting it. So I love it. And I think to your point, it's a learning opportunity, right? If it's not a success, it's a learning opportunity. And I think that's the mindset to be in this past year. And so you talked about some of the philanthropy work you do. What inspired you to work with not only the organizations you're working with, but to give your time to start prioritizing that in your life?
Well, when you think about my upbringing, I was surrounded with, family. And, when I thought about, well, who was the mentor for me? Who helped me understand, training, work ethic, discipline, all those things translated as I became, in high school, an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
When I transitioned out of high school, I went to the pros, and I always had that work ethic. And I always said, you know what? Nobody helped me really kind of walk me through the steps. And at the end of the day, when you think about, well, how can I pay it forward? Because I've been able to reach a level of success, and how can I give that back? That's really what inspired me, because I've always been surrounded around young people and the youth. And when you think about the organizations that are out there, like Boys and Girls Club in Broward, Big Brothers Big Sisters in Miami, it was just a natural attraction to not only be around kids, but offer them the ability to connect with me now as a professional. Seeing
Yeah.
me wear a suit and tie, having a clean look, being able to kind of, speak more articulate, sharing with them the values of how to prepare for that transition. Because again, sports is never a guarantee. It's not a lifer. It's kind of like, well, how do I transition and adjust to, the real world? So by me getting involved philanthropically and spending more time in these organizations, a lot of kids, utilize these institutions or organizations to kind of, get a meal.
Yeah.
Sometimes, have somebody to lean on, do
Mm-hmm.
some homework. So I felt like just by participating and getting more involved in these types of organizations is going to help me pay it forward and really help somebody else, give them a hand up.
Yeah, you mentioned the big thing that stood out to me there too was the fact that you said I'm not just coming in as like a football camp or coming in to do practice and run drills, right? I'm coming in to talk about what I do now and the importance of financial, literacy and math and going to school and getting that mentorship part, because I do feel like there's a lot of young people that look up to you as an athlete, right? And they say, wow, you made it to the highest levels. You did it. Like, what was that experience like? And so I love that you're like, yeah, I did, but it was, not the rest of my life. Now I'm doing this and I had to get there. So I'd love to hear from you. What was that journey like? Like, tell us about your first sports experience, how you got to football, and then how you got in and out of pro football. You made it there and now you're doing something else. So tell us about that journey.
Absolutely. Well, it started with box ball, unorganized, in the neighborhood. Hopscotch, playing all these types of games. But, as I got older, high school was kind of where I started identifying who I was as a man and, transitioning into that maturity.
Mm-hmm.
I joined high school football literally my junior year in high school.
Wow.
And because the only reason for that is because my coaches in high school noticed that I started getting a little wider, like, well, whoa, what are you doing, son? Why aren't you out there on the field? And that was so inspiring, because when you have a coach come up to you literally at lunchtime and, you're thinking about, well, how do I get to the next class? I'm worried about lunch. I have PE, but then when you actually have a head coach come up to you and say, well, you know what? You may, help our team out, but there might be some opportunities for you even after high school. That rung a bell. And I said, you know what do I have to lose at the end of the day? Well, I can get involved with an organization. I can get involved with, friends and build a family with a team. And having organized sports really allowed me to really kind of compete at a higher level.
Mm.
1 year of high school, playing football really opened up the doors for me.
Yeah.
It provided me an education. And I knew for a fact that it wasn't going to be the only thing that I looked forward to. My parents, always encouraged me to get the education, because you never, know what can happen. And, obviously when you're athletic and you can kind of play any sport, you apply yourself, you give all you got. But at the end of the day, you have to have that fallback plan. You have to realize that it's not forever, because your body, goes through the ringer. And at the end of the day, training 2-3 times a day, the way you eat, the way you have to focus, the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
That's such a huge part of mental health, especially as an athlete. And I think obviously by me getting involved in the organization and being able to perform at those levels, I started becoming more focused. And I started realizing that it was up to me to kind of really set, the pace of my destiny. So being that I was in that type of environment really accelerated kind of my interest for more. So I pushed myself. I never gave up. I mean, there were tough times, going to, practice in the snow, times where you just didn't want to wake up and go to 2 days or meetings. But when you realize, if I put the time in, that could really be a great outcome on the other side. But I
Yeah.
never forgot my education. I took 22 credit hours a semester when I got to university. And I knew for a fact that I wanted to, get into business. And I said, for what it was worth, if I get nothing out of this deal outside of an education, I'm still with it.
Yeah.
And that's really what propelled me to say, you know what? Keep allowing sports to be the opportunity, but not the end game.
Yeah, I love how you just said that. It's the opportunity, it's not the end. And being in that you help people plan for exit strategies, right? Succession planning, the end, right? I think it's great outlook for you to be saying, look, this is something that all athletes at any level, this is not a lifetime opportunity. This is not you're set for life. There's probably 0.001% of people that can say, I did this and now I'm set for life, right? But for everyone else, it's an opportunity to your point, get an education, get opportunities to find cool career paths and meet interesting people. So why did you decide to pursue financial planning? What piqued your interest? Was there a point in your career at college or professionally where you were like, this is what I want to do?
You have the best questions ever. Well, I'll tell you what, it started off with, Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy in Trading Places. When you think about that movie, when I watched that movie as a kid, when I was like 6, 7 years old, I really paid attention to what was happening in that movie. You had people that were doing super cool stuff, talking about orange juice, futures, stocks, and bonds. I'm like, what is that about? I got to turn off the wrestling and find out what these guys are doing because these guys look like winners. So I said, at the end of the day, I wanted to pursue people who were under the impression of success. And at the end of the day, there's a big difference between looking successful and becoming successful. And I think really the education sets you apart to being successful. But I was so intrigued at the fact that, you can get into a financial game and not only, a lucrative industry, but at the same time, an industry where you can help people with their finances, educate them on what does it mean to, put money away, invest it. Don't just rely on the community bank. There's other ways that you can kind of prepare yourself and learn how to use your money. It's a currency, it's a tool. But when you think about it, there's ways to multiply it, but there's ways to educate yourself on how to use it. So because of, my interests from, a child in Trading Places, watching those movies, I left Florida and I went to the coal mine state. I went to the University of Charleston in West Virginia. Big change. When I say rural, from, tropical weather year round to now, I'm now understanding what all the seasons are about. So I had nothing to do outside of, really study and focus. I didn't go to the university that had 30,000 kids. We had 1,200 kids at the university and we played sports. So all I really could do was focus. And that's what made me realize that, at the end of the day, if I become a businessman in some capacity, at least I'm going to set myself up for success. And getting that degree turned into a bachelor's of science, but then I also pursued a master's in business administration and leadership. So I always had that ambition to becoming a business person. When I got into sports and then my transition out of sports is when I said, I want to be competitive. And it's not only in sports that you can, make a great living. It's not only, your uncle who works at, a bank or an institution that can kind of, get you in the door. I said, I'm going after it. And I'm not going to slow down because, when I think about opportunity, you got to go after it. It's not going to come to your door. You got to knock, you got to cut out your own door and make your own opportunity happen. And that's what made me realize that finance was kind of, what kept me going and really energized my brain to use my brain. Because at the end of the day, you got to keep learning. You got to keep growing. And the only way to do that is feed your mind.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned a couple of things that sound very sports terminology, competitive, right? Go get that opportunity, right? End game. What impact did sports have on your life? Not even just life as a financial planner, but your life now. Like, how has sports shaped who you are? What lessons and skills are you still using in your everyday life?
Girl, you are hitting the nail on the head with these questions, girl. Well, work ethic. I think obviously, sports is such a humongous part of any person's journey. You learn how to be a part of a team. You learn organization. You learn skill sets that you still apply after sport life.
Mm-hmm.
My routine doesn't change. I still wake up at 5 a.m. and I'm not finished with my day until 8 p.m. But you know what? I use my time efficiently and I manage it to where it's helping me grow.
Yeah.
So I think everything that I've learned, as a sportsman, I now still apply that same principle and ethic, towards me as a professional today. So that's the game of life. And every
Mm-hmm.
sport, helps you, become better at life. It doesn't matter what sport you choose. It could be table tennis all the way to, football, being a gladiator, or in between. And I think obviously when you think about, well, as long as you have something that you follow and you believe in, that's really what's going to set you up for success. Never quitting, but also remembering the principles. What got you going to want to learn more about, running faster, lifting more weights, and being competitive? It was something inside. When they say, well, something inside so strong burns, and that fuel to the fire just, has you wanting more. So I think the sports really has allowed me to transition and become a pro, not only as a pro, a sports person, but as a true, as a man. And I think obviously when you think about those principles, I live by those principles still today. So sports has really set my foundation up for my success.
Yeah, and it's almost like it sounds like you're able to use that as a jumping off point in anything you're doing where you go, oh, this isn't foreign territory to me. I know how to do this because of my experience in sports. Like I just have to change the terms, right? Instead of, touchdowns and yard lines, we're talking, numbers and, growth projections and all of those kinds of things, right? But it's goal setting, it's competitive, it's going out and finding those opportunities. So I love that the skills are setting you up for success in whatever you're approaching, and you're able to kind of break it down. And a couple more questions for you before I let you go. What advice would you give on what you did to set yourself up successfully, or what you wish you did, to any athletes thinking about, oh boy, like, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to use athlete as my job description, right? What advice would you give them?
Well, it's a very compelling question, Danielle, because I think obviously the mentality of, you being able to play that sport forever is an epiphany. Because obviously when you think about the realistic things that happen to your body and what happens, after sports life, what's the fallback plan? So I think obviously when you think about it, being able to use sports as a platform to network, get yourself out there, look in the mirror every single day and say, compete with yourself. What did I do yesterday that I can do tomorrow, but way better? Did I meet a new person? Did I make a new connection? Did I ask somebody for help? Did I become humble and use my humility to allow that door to open for me? And sometimes it's as simple as, just saying a hello, a good morning, or saying a thank you, you're welcome. And I think utilizing, those good traits really helps set you up for success where people are going to be attracted to you. Us athletes, we have such a humongous platform to be able to, get access, or be able to, skip a line, or be able to kind of, be able to find opportunities because we played sports. But how do you leverage that? How do you utilize that as a platform so you can grow your network? Yes, you have to know something, but at the same time, in this society, it's who you know.
Yeah.
So I think obviously that's really where I would say, if somebody can take away a nugget, it's, network. Get yourself out there. Get outside of your comfort zone and make yourself available. If you don't like to be in public, well, lucky for you, this was kind of a blessing in disguise. You can network. Join a Zoom call.
Exactly.
Get involved with some type of community event. If it's just, you showing up and just, spending some time in that new community. So I think honestly, leveraging the professional side, the athletic side, but allowing that to allow abundance and prosperity to enter into your life.
Yeah, I think that's such great advice. And to your point, it doesn't always have to be, going out and meeting 100 people at an event. It could be intentional LinkedIn requests where you find someone and you relate to them and you say, wow, I would love to chat with you one-on-one Zoom coffee date, right? It doesn't have to be putting yourself in a public platform, but it's such great advice. And to your point, the leverage piece is huge. You have this opportunity. And I want to also talk about, because you do so much work for the community, what advice do you have for athletes that want to make an impact or use their platform for good? How can they start to do that?
Legacy, and think of your legacy not, before you get a big contract, or, before you decide to, oh, I want to start a business. Well, really think about your legacy. What do you want to leave behind? Is it your family that you want in your legacy to be able to, take advantage of what you've created? Is it the, organizations that were allowing you to propel as you were growing up? Or is it just, the goodwill in your heart that you want to make sure that you leave something for people to remember you? Legacy is such a broad conversation. When you think about legacy and perpetuity, what are you leaving behind? How are they going to remember you at the end of the day? What good did you give? How did you change the world? So, I encourage all athletes to always consider legacy, because if you play a sport, you're already a legacy. Because how hard is it to have that work ethic, to be consistent, and to know, even if you don't win that game, you still have to shake that opponent's hand. You still have to make sure that it's not what you said, it's how you made them feel that counts. So essentially, when you think about that human touch, that side of your humanity, look what we went through as a country, globally. Riots, coronavirus. I mean, you can name everything that just is uncontrollable. But at the end of the day, how did you make that person feel, and what are they going to remember when you're no longer around?
Yeah, so well said. And I honestly think it's such a great point that it's not a one size fits all. It's very individual to you. What makes sense to you? What's your legacy? How do you want to be seen? And it's going to be different. We're going to have different legacies between you and I. And I think that's something for athletes to think about, is look at what people are doing as an idea, not as what you have to get to, because that's what they want to do. And you need to figure out what you want to do, what you can do. So great advice all around. And this has been awesome. My last question is, how can people find you? How can people connect with you? And what's coming up? What's coming up for you in the next 12 months that are hopefully less crazy?
Well, it's a great question. What's coming up for me is, realizing that you had to kind of reinvent yourself in the coronavirus, in this situation. What's ahead of me is philanthropy, but personally, really, starting maybe an organization to mentor the youth, really help them understand there's access to, people like myself and other types of people who are in my network to help mentor the youth. Because I think, obviously, there's not enough mentoring going around. And I think if I could provide a platform for the youth to be able to connect with people like myself, other leaders like you, entrepreneurs, business owners, find out what you don't know. But how do you do that? Well, you have to be around people who can level you up. Yeah. You have to be around people who can help you think a different way. And I think, obviously, by creating an organization that's going to provide mentorship, that's really kind of what's next for me ahead.
I love that.
If you want to find me, I got a couple different handles. First and foremost, Instagram, Zoe the Legend is on Instagram. Facebook, you can find me on Kristoffer Doura Finance. That's another handle. And on LinkedIn, my name, Kristoffer Doura. I think those are 3 great platforms that you can connect with me. And let's get a virtual cup of coffee. At the end of the day, who knows what we can talk about? Whether it's life, finances, charity work, or whether it's just, building a new relationship. You can find me on all those 3 portals.
I love it. Well, we'll definitely link to those. We'll share this around and make sure we tag you on all those. People can connect. So, but Chris, thanks you so much for joining us, for being on Timeout, for giving such great advice. Really, I hope everybody here that's tuned in live and that's going to watch this later really gravitates to some of the advice you've given, because it's really, really awesome. And I think a lot of people can learn from those kind of small steps, right? Thinking intentionally and using the skills you've had in sports to leverage your next opportunity. So thank you for being here. Thank you so much for taking a time out with us. And yeah, everyone go follow Chris, go check out his LinkedIn, send him a request for a up for a Zoom coffee chat. And Chris, thanks for all your support of Tackle What's Next. And it was great to catch up.
Tackle What's Next, one of the greatest platforms. Follow, show love, get to know Tackle What's Next, because Danielle's doing big things. And please let me know next time you show up in Dade County, the city is yours.
Oh, you're the best. You're so kind. And again, keep me posted on this new organization idea you're coming up with and planning how we can support. Would love to. It sounds fantastic. So thank you again for your time, and we will be in touch very soon.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Have a great evening. Thank you.
You too. Bye.